My parents texted, "We need space. Don't reach out again." My uncle liked it. I replied, "Sure. I'll cancel my direct deposits." By midnight, the trust was frozen, vacation fund gone, estate taxes theirs again. At 4:02 a.m., my brother called 17 times. I just sent, "Enjoy the distance you wanted." That was before they saw what I took. Can you believe your own family would try to cut you out, just like that? What they didn't realize was that when they pushed me away, they actually handed me the ultimate weapon, a secret my grandfather entrusted to me, one that would turn their world upside down. My name's Adrian, I'm 34, and for most of my life, I was that guy. The good son, the dependable one, the problem solver. Birthdays, broken pipes, surprise bills, late-night drives for my brother's car trouble, I handled it all. I didn't really mind, honestly. I grew up believing loyalty meant sacrifice, and I took that to heart, even if it felt like I was the only one. Things weren't always like this. We used to be close, or so I thought. But slowly, subtly, things turned sour. It started with little jabs at family dinners. Adrian's married to his work, my dad would chuckle. Guess that's why we don't have grandkids yet. Or my mom sighing when I missed Sunday brunch because of a huge presentation. Your brother makes time, she'd say, as if his barista job with no rent responsibilities was the same as my career. I brushed it off for years, just smiled and made a self-deprecating joke. It was easier than confronting the sting. But the weight started to show. I'd fly them out for vacations, book the nice hotels, pay all the restaurant tabs. I even covered my brother's overdraft fees, which became a monthly thing. And still, I felt like an outsider. My input was ignored in group chats. My name was missing from Christmas dinner place cards, every single one hand-lettered by my mom. I didn't even get a stocking anymore. Yet, I kept showing up. Birthdays, holidays, house repairs, financial crises, I was always there. Until I wasn't. It started unraveling a few months ago. I got an email from the family accountant about the trust my grandfather set up. It was substantial, but more than that, it was symbolic and anchor. I was a co-trustee with my Uncle Raymond, who treated it like a nuisance. "Just sign the damn thing, Adrian," he'd always say. "You're the numbers guy." And I was. Finance was my career. Managing wealth was second nature. I never asked for more, never played games. I just kept the machine running. But that email had a clause I'd never noticed, and I knew no one else had either. A clause that essentially gave me final say over discretionary distributions if certain thresholds weren't met by the other trustee. I filed it away, unsure if I'd ever need it. I didn't want power, I wanted peace. Then came the message. It was a bland Thursday afternoon. My phone buzzed. A group text from my mom, "We've talked it over and we think we need space. Please don't reach out anymore." No explanation. Just that. And beneath it, my uncle had reacted with a thumbs up. My brother, of course, said nothing. I stared at the screen, wondering if it was a mistake, a bad joke. But the longer I looked, the colder it felt. Premeditated. Then it clicked. I remembered my brother's half-drunk voicemail from a week before. "Mom says you're getting weird about the money. You're making things complicated. This whole family would run smoother if you just stopped trying to control everything." The coldness at the last dinner, my name missing from my nephew's birthday invite, my uncle handling paperwork behind my back, it all made sense. They planned this. They thought I'd quietly bow out, like always. I stared at the message again, read it 3 times. My fingers hovered. I could have begged for clarification, written a novel about everything I'd done for them. But I didn't. I typed 1 sentence. "Of course, I'll cancel my direct deposits first thing." I didn't even wait for a reply. That night, I logged into every account tied to the family trust, every joint investment, every shared emergency fund I'd helped set up. I wasn't being malicious, I was being precise. The moment I saw Uncle Raymond had signed off on a $15,000 vacation advance 2 days prior, I knew I wasn't overreacting. The paper trail was sloppy. Expenses masked as property upkeep had gone to a casino in Reno. My brother had filed a $6,700 reimbursement for medical travel, a trip I knew for a fact was to Coachella. By midnight, I had frozen the trust under my discretionary authority clause. I flagged it for audit, emptied the vacation fund into a holding account, triggered an alert halting all external transfers above $1,000. And finally, I updated the tax profile. With the protections I'd removed, the trust would now be subject to the standard estate tax bracket, something they'd all worked hard to avoid with my help. That buffer was gone. At 4:02 a.m., my phone started buzzing. 17 calls from my brother, 6 from my mom, 1 from Uncle Raymond. No voicemails, just that aggressive, panic type of call that demands answers. I didn't pick up. I didn't even open their frantic messages. I sent 1 reply to the group chat, typed cleanly, "Wishing you all the distance you asked for." That was it. I locked my phone, tossed it on the nightstand, and slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I didn't check my phone. I went for a run, something I hadn't done in weeks. There was a chill in the air, the kind that bites at your lungs and makes every breath feel new. I ran until my legs burned, my mind empty, my body alive in a way it hadn't felt since before all of this. I didn't even think about the fallout. Not yet. When I got home, 24 unread messages were waiting. The tone had shifted overnight. The early ones were furious for my brother. What did you do? You can't just mess with the trust. Then my mom. You're being dramatic, Adrian. We just needed space, not whatever this is. Uncle Raymond, if this is your way of throwing a tantrum, you've gone too far. You'll be hearing from our lawyer. But the later ones, those were different. Can we just talk? You're blowing this out of proportion. We didn't mean to hurt you. And finally, from my dad, who hadn't said a word until then. Please don't do anything you'll regret. I read that one twice, laughed, then deleted it. See, what they didn't understand, what they never understood, was that I didn't do this out of spite. I didn't retaliate out of pettiness or revenge. I made a decision, a clean break, one they asked for, whether they realized it or not. But let me tell you about what I really took with me. It started 2 years ago, right after my grandfather passed away. He was a quiet man, stern but kind, and sharp until the end. He pulled me aside after the funeral, eyes watery but focused, and handed me a letter. Not a legal document, just a handwritten note in his scrolled, no-nonsense penmanship. You're the only one I trust to protect the family from itself. That was all it said. No signature, no explanation. That letter stayed with me, tucked in my safe. I figured he meant the trust or the accounts. But now, years later, I understood. He saw them clearly, even when I didn't. What I took wasn't just money. It was leverage, insurance, protection. Over the years, while I was drafting documents, filing reports, and keeping everything afloat, I started noticing discrepancies. Little things. A missing signature here, a double charge there, accidental transfers. My uncle had gotten sloppy. And my brother, well, he never respected the value of a dollar that wasn't his. So quietly, thoroughly, I started documenting everything. I had copies of every expense report, screen recorded every bank transfer they made under my name, kept a spreadsheet of every loan they never paid back. I even had emails where my mother thanked me for covering property taxes they told the rest of the family they had paid. But the real prize? The ownership documents for the lake house. That house had always been presented as our family's shared vacation home. What no one realized was that after Grandpa passed, I bought out the remaining mortgage with my own funds. Quietly, legally. I never changed the name on the mailbox, never mentioned the title transfer. I just handled the payments while everyone else used it for summer getaways and holiday photos. My brother even proposed to his fiancée there. And it was mine. Fully paid off, legally filed. The deed rested in my office drawer, notarized and untouched. They thought the trust owned it. They were wrong. So when I froze the family's accounts, yes, the trust was paralyzed, the vacation fund gone, the estate protections reversed. But the lake house? That was never theirs to begin with. They built memories on borrowed time. And now it was locked, empty, off limits. I changed the passcode to the front gate, scheduled security upgrades. And for good measure, I listed it as an exclusive rental on a high-end platform, starting at $3,000 a night. Booked solid for the next 5 months. I didn't do it to make money. I did it because my grandfather trusted me to protect the family from itself. That night, my mom called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Her voice was tight, tearful but controlled. Adrian, we didn't mean what we said. It was just, things have been tense. We miss you. Your brother, he's struggling, you know that. And your uncle, he's under a lot of pressure. We shouldn't have pushed you out. Please call us. Let's fix this. I listened once, then deleted it. Because here's the truth they still haven't faced. This wasn't about one message or one account. This was years of being the backup plan, the safety net, the reliable disappointment they knew would always catch the fall, pay the debt, show up uninvited but needed. They cut the cord. I just made sure they couldn't grab it again when they started to fall. And now they're starting to fall. 2 days later, the group chat exploded again, this time with pure panic. It started with a message from my cousin Leah, one of the few family members I actually liked. She rarely got involved in drama. Leah, hey, I don't know what's going on, but Aunt Lisa's flipping out. Something about the foundation paperwork. She said you locked her out of the documents folder. I hadn't expected that to come to light so soon. See, the foundation wasn't a charity in the traditional sense. It was a tax shelter. Legal, but very gray. My uncle set it up a decade ago to manage family giving. And it just so happened that I helped set up the infrastructure and cloud storage for it back when they didn't know the difference between a password and a PDF. The documents folder? Yeah, I had full admin access. Always did. I never thought I'd need to use it. But after their message, I revoked every user permission and put the whole thing behind encryption. Legally, I didn't have the right to take anything, but they didn't have the right to use my name and ID on the initial filings either. I made sure of that. I had screenshots, metadata, IP logs, everything. So, when my aunt realized she couldn't access their financial records, the foundation account statements, or the expense tracking spreadsheets they needed to file their quarterly report, she must have absolutely lost it. I pictured her pacing her kitchen in those awful leopard print slippers, screeching into her fourth glass of wine, flinging her phone at my uncle and yelling, "What did Adrian do now?" Just like that, the cracks turned into a collapse. That night, I got an email from a law firm I hadn't heard of before. A shiny boutique practice in Chicago trying to sound scarier than they were. Subject line, Urgent Family Trust Access Inquiry. I didn't even open it. I forwarded it to my own lawyer, Natalia, with a quick message. This is probably the first of many. Loop me in if anything serious comes through. The next day, my brother showed up at my condo. I wasn't home, of course. I'd anticipated something like this. The building has a concierge and security cameras. He wasn't subtle about his arrival either. The desk called me with a note of concern. Apparently, he slammed his hand on the front counter and demanded to be let up, shouting about family emergencies and stolen property. I watched the footage later. There he was, in a crumpled hoodie, looking more like a college dropout than a 32-year-old father of two, red-faced, fidgeting, pacing the lobby like a restless teenager waiting for someone to cave. He waited 30 minutes, then left. No call, no message, just an Instagram story. He probably thought I wouldn't see it. A photo of our grandfather's urn, the actual urn, on the mantel at our parents' house. The caption read, "Some people forgot where they came from." That photo hit me in the gut. My grandfather had meant everything to me. He was the only person in that house who ever listened, who taught me how to do the hard thing, even when it cost you. And now they were dragging his memory into this mess. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I went into my safe and pulled out the letter he gave me, the same one I mentioned before, folded, slightly yellowed and fading. I read it again, and then I flipped it over. Something I hadn't noticed before. Scrolled faintly on the back, in the corner, were 5 numbers. It looked like a bank account, or maybe a combination, a code. I don't know how I missed it. I must have looked at that paper 100 times over the years, but never flipped it. I scanned the number into my files, then went back to the stack of folders I'd been collecting. Files on the trust, the deeds, the business accounts my uncle opened without telling anyone. There it was, in an old ledger from 15 years ago, a hidden account, one that had never been touched. My heart started racing. I cross-referenced it with the estate filings and found a single-line item, emergency reserve. No details, no balance, no sign of who had access. Until now. That's what I took. Or rather, that's what I was given. Not just leverage, not just proof, not just a house or a trust or access, but a legacy my grandfather had quietly stashed away, hidden from the vultures who would have drained it dry. A nest egg no one else even remembered existed. Not a fortune necessarily, but enough. Enough to change everything. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet. Not until I received one more message from my mother. Just 6 words. "We didn't raise you like this." I didn't reply. Not yet. But I knew what I'd do next. And they were not ready. Not even close. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at that message. "We didn't raise you like this." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even a plea. It was a judgment. A subtle attempt to remind me of my role, of the mold I was supposed to fit. The good son. The quiet one. The provider. The one who pays. Who nods. Who forgives. That sentence wasn't about guilt. It was about control. And that was the moment I knew. There was no going back. Not this time. Not after everything they'd said and done. Not after they turned my loyalty into expectation, my generosity into obligation, and my silence into permission. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Natalia. She was sharp, unflinching, with a gift for anticipating what people would do, and a blunt honesty I appreciated. I laid out everything. What I had access to, what they'd done, the backup documents, the shady deductions, and the trust clause they clearly never read. When I told her about the hidden account my grandfather had left, she went silent for a moment. Then she said, "You have more power than you realize. But if you're going to do this, Adrian, you need to be ready to lose them. All of them." "I already have," I said. She didn't ask any more questions. Within a week, everything was in motion. First, I initiated a full audit of the trust. Natalia helped me file a formal petition to remove Uncle Raymond as co-trustee, citing financial misconduct, unauthorized spending, and failure to notify me of large discretionary withdrawals. Attached were over 100 pages of supporting documentation, timestamps, emails, flagged expenses, recorded conversations. I spared no detail. Then we notified the Family Foundations Board. Most were names on paper, but the kind of names that cared about reputation. We showed them evidence of misappropriated funds, backdated receipts, and personal trips listed as charity consulting. The fallout was immediate. My uncle was forced to resign from the board within 48 hours to avoid a full-blown investigation. By the end of that week, my brother was suspended from the startup incubator my parents had funded for him using trust money. They had no choice. He wasn't listed as a beneficiary, and his salary had been funneled through a shell company registered under my uncle's name. With the trust frozen and its assets under review, everything he touched was now radioactive. The lake house. I didn't just keep it, I sold it. I contacted a private buyer, someone who wanted a second home for their retirement and didn't blink at the $2.1 million asking price. The transaction closed in 6 days. The house that had once been their sanctuary, where they held anniversaries, birthdays, and drunken 4th of July barbecues, was gone. No warning, no goodbye, just a new owner with new keys. I didn't pocket the money. That wasn't the point. Instead, I used it to establish a real foundation, one with transparency, governance, and an actual purpose. I named it the Hayes Initiative, after my grandfather, not the family name. It focused on financial literacy programs for underprivileged youth, something he always talked about but never got to pursue. I put Natalia on the board, recruited friends from the financial sector, people with integrity. It was everything the old foundation pretended to be. And then I sent out the letter. It wasn't an email. I had it printed, signed, and mailed to every immediate family member. My parents, my brother, Uncle Raymond, Aunt Lisa, even Leah. The envelope was thick, formal, and impossible to ignore. It read, "Dear family, this letter serves as formal notice that I am fully withdrawing from all shared financial obligations, including but not limited to the family trust, foundation operations, discretionary accounts, estate planning, and vacation properties. As of today, I am no longer responsible for any administrative, fiduciary, or advisory role. All ongoing matters have been handed over to legal counsel, and appropriate authorities have been notified of irregularities where applicable. I have taken steps to protect my name, assets, and professional standing. This is not revenge. It's a boundary. You asked for distance. Now you have it. Adrian." There was silence. No calls, no texts. Not at first. Until my father showed up. I heard the knock before I saw him, slow, deliberate, not like the frantic banging from my brother days earlier. I opened the door, and there he stood, dressed in a blazer like he was coming from church or court. Face pale, eyes sunken. The look of a man who knew he'd lost something he couldn't buy back. "Adrian," he said. His voice cracked like it hadn't in years. I didn't move, didn't invite him in. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a photo. An old one. Me and Grandpa sitting on the dock behind the lake house, legs dangling over the water. I was maybe 10, holding a fishing rod, grinning with a gap in my teeth. Grandpa was looking at me, not the camera. "I found this in his old drawer," my dad said, his hand trembling slightly. "I thought you should have it." I took the photo, looked at it. "Why now?" I asked. He looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "Because you were right," he whispered. "About all of it. We used you, took from you, never even said thank you. And then when you finally set a boundary, we acted like you betrayed us. But you didn't. We betrayed you. I let the silence settle between us. You're not here for the trust?" I asked, calm but sharp. "No," he said quickly. I don't want to lose my son." It was the first honest thing he'd said in years. But it wasn't enough. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "But I'm not coming back either." His face twisted, not in anger, but in that quiet grief that comes when a door finally closes. "I understand," he said. And he did. He turned to leave. Just before he reached the elevator, I called out, "Dad!" He looked back. Grandpa left me something. A letter. He told me to protect the family from itself. He nodded. "And you did." Then he left. And that was the end. No big confrontation, no dramatic showdown, just quiet accountability. In the weeks that followed, the audit concluded. The trust was dissolved. My uncle was fined quietly but heavily. My brother moved to a smaller apartment and stopped tagging me in his Instagram rants. My mother never called again, and I stopped waiting for her to. Instead, I focused on my new foundation. I gave talks, mentored students, taught kids how to spot the traps in contracts, how to read financial statements, how to hold power responsibly. Sometimes I think about the lake house, about the dock, about the boy with the missing tooth, and the man who saw the truth long before I did. But I never regret walking away, because sometimes the only way to save yourself is to let the family fall apart. And when they did, I didn't just survive. I finally lived. What would you have done if your family pushed you to your breaking point like this? Have you ever had to make a clean break for your own peace? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear what you think.